Okay, to Dave Jacob, who I should say is I'm pleasantly surprised that there's I find an interaction with somebody who is atheistic in their view and is not just by any means necessary has to be anti-Christian or win, quote unquote win the debate if that's even possible, right? To win and win the argument at any means, and just like try to instead of try to come to a closer understanding of what another person thinks or believes or just another view on something maybe you don't have, they have to attack it. I've seen a shocking amount of fundamentalists who on YouTube they have, and this happened when I showed a fundamentalist Calvinist from the South, uh, that none of the early church lined up like Calvinism, and I showed him that like the Bible, yeah, the texts were early, but the Bible didn't get you. The church was the one that brought the Bible together, so you had to at least trust the church for the first 400 centuries, um, or sorry, 400 years, not 400 centuries, first 4 centuries, first 400 years to even get to a place where you can say the Bible is authoritative. Um, and what he did is he flipped and became just as fanatical about and proselytizing about um, his Christianity. He didn't go, oh, and take a step back and start to look at things. He did that for a little bit, but then when he reached atheism, he went out and started basically evangelizing atheism with just as narrow mind as he embraced Christianity. And that shocks me when I see that, because at the same time he'd be saying we believe in doubt and aren't so sure of things. Like, you're pretty fucking sure of things if you just became an atheist a week ago and now you're going out. I mean, he showed his lack of understanding of Christianity as its existence. He was only just looking at the verses in his Bible and listening to one preacher in Texas, and then going to the other extreme without reading, a philosophy book, even a philosophy textbook, or looking at any other religions, just going, oh, well, boom, and then like, and I find that shocking, and I find there's a lot of people who say I was a Christian. I'm like, that's actually probably the reason why you're so freaking hostile to. I was a really devout Christian. You were a very devout type of evangelical Protestant, and then you became just as closed-minded, but with one less God. So I'm very glad to encounter Dave Jacob. But in summary of all 6 parts, looking back over your questions and my answers, I think it's vital to you understanding my position for you to watch all 6 parts. But in summary, um, here's the gist of it, right? Christianity is not equal to the Bible. The church predates the New Testament by 400 years. Again, whether you want to count the Second Council of Carthage in the early 400s or Athanasius of Alexandria's Paschal Letter, 39th Paschal Letter in AD 367, you've got, whether you got, there's some time there. But the texts um, date to only predate the church only predates the actual texts by 10 to 40 years, maybe 50 in some cases, right? These things were written very early, and we have a better manuscript. There's no better, more attested to person through just the dating of the manuscripts. And this is the compilation of over 6,000 um, Greek manuscripts, as well as the tens of thousands of Latin manuscripts, the thousands of Syriac manuscripts, Coptic, Ethiopic, um, Slavonic, but the dates are all well within the first century for um, every single book, except maybe Second Peter. Um, but Mark and the um, the epistles of Paul were extremely early, right? And then we have other writing at just as early, like the Didache. um, um, this is the first misconception that caused you to misunderstand my position. Going on, where the church goes, writing and Western values go, um, not the other way around. And it's not just where Europeans, because when I'm speaking of this, remember my main focus of research was in from around the Hasmonean period, right, or just before the Hasmonean, let's say. Let me give you an idea of just the centuries: 300 BC to 800 AD, right? So, uh, um, time of Alexander the Great to Charlemagne. But I was mainly interested in the period of the Maccabees, and then from before the just before the early church, and right when we start just getting, and we have a consolidation of Europe. I really like the first 4-5 centuries of the Christian era. People call it the Common Era. I don't know why they do that. BCE and C, it's silly. It's BC and AD. It's much easier. If you want a better thing, just say, I don't know. Instead of before Christ and Anno Domini, why don't they just change what BC stands for and AD stands for? So I'm speaking of the churches spread throughout Europe, North Africa, and Asia. I do not think you have read the New Testament, nor studied the history of Europe in depth, nor studied religion or history in general. Again, this is not a slant. Not everybody studies this stuff and goes in depth on it, or devotes now over 15 years of their life to researching this damn stuff. Case in point, you claim that women can't lecture men, are not allowed to teach men, or that God demands unquestioning, undoubting. You can't doubt God or question him or say, wait, this is wrong. I'll get to that stuff later. All right. Yes, many societies did indeed. Rape, murder, cheating, and stealing were fine. Like I say I think it's part 5, 4 or 5. Sparta, to become a man, you had to kill a hoplite, right? Or I always get hoplite mixed up with the other. What did the slaves? Sounds like hoplite. I don't really care about ancient Greece, but yeah, the Spartans would discard the weak, kill the weak. They'd had infants. They you know exposed to die. They wouldn't even mercifully kill them. They would put them out to be killed by animals or the weather or malnourishment. That's pretty cold blooded from our perspective, right? Or in order to be a man, you had to kill another slave, and you were only punished. Remember, children were only punished for stealing. They were never punished for stealing. They were punished if they got caught, because they had to be trained to be warriors and brutal, because their whole thing was war and behind enemy lines. And then you have the case of the Norse, the Algonquin, that lived in Virginia and um, the Eastern Bank, that sympathy, humiliation, mercy, weakness, we're all treated with disgust. We're just seen as hateful and just intolerable. There was no, again, it was a brutal, brutal world. Basically, they were still in the Stone Age, and if killing that other guy and stealing his food for the winter helped you survive, then do it. Or if they did live in tribes, yeah, but if helping out those weak people that you didn't know, that might get you killed. So even when they had abundance to share, it was just not a thing. Another case in point: World War II Japanese. The slaughter that they wrought through China and the Philippines shocked even the Nazis. The Nazis delayed the rape of Nanking. Remember, they were a very insular society. They had limited contact with Europe, right? And they had purged Christianity from their shores centuries before World War II. The modern era of sex, just look at Kinsey, and sex education works about as well as DARE did. It fucks things up. Check part 6 of my video about that. And also just type in Kinsey and pedophiles. And there's a whole documentary done by, it's the History Channel or National Geographic or the BBC, where Kinsey actually paid men to rape their daughters. And this is the guy that brought sex education. So polygamy is never endorsed by God in the Bible. In fact, it's shown as destructive. Case in point, Solomon. The downfall of Solomon and David was they had too many wives. That's what it's described to. And all the evil shit that David does, he's the poster child of God's forgiveness, right? Slavery is also not endorsed. But I also want to read you something. This is Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is good, is of good repute. If there is any excellence, if anything worthy of praise, dwell on those things. And Paul often uses, he cites, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's Paul quoting, we get that in Western civilization from Paul, but that's Paul quoting the Epicureans. There's a lot of Stoic and Epicurean philosophy in Paul. But yeah, the Germans did not get the Germanic people, the Alemanni or whoever, did not get writing and then become Christian. They accepted the church, and the church brought with them writing and all of the knowledge of Greece and Europe, Greece and Rome, and all of the texts before them. Just like I said, they did with Ireland, and the Picts saw this, and the Pict chieftains, as it came down. Again, the Britons had this. The Gallic Britons, post-Roman Britons, had this, and the Anglo-Saxons fucking destroyed them and plunged. This is the reason for the Dark Ages: is the pagans coming down and just fucking destroying the shit out of everything. And it's not until they get Christianized that they get writing and philosophy and architecture and geometry and mathematics. Same with the Norse. The Vikings didn't have any of that until they became Christianized. The Slavs, you can go through it all. I'm not trying to attack you personally, like you're stupid or you're not. Obviously, you're. It's always good. I always like it when I don't know something, because then it gives me a chance to learn, right? Because there's a point where you get so exhausted, especially if you're studying in a field where it's like everything, and you're like, you're just looking at minor details, and you're hoping that they'll find some other manuscript to pull out of the ground. Yeah, I think you're projecting a lot of your views, your modern Western views, on other cultures, because, like I said, the Algonquins of Virginia, like the Powhatan, the Japanese their culture during World War II. I mean, sent home videos of men disemboweling pregnant women. Like the Japanese did not see the other Asians as human beings. They just slaughtered the shit out of the Philippines and China. I think you're projecting modern Western values back onto those civilizations. And as for the European colonizers, I mean, I think that's a boring period of history. It's really driven by nation states fighting each other for resources. And the church comes kind of later, as I said with Columbus. But even the worst of the these terrible thugs that came from Christian civilizations in Europe look like Girl Scouts compared to the Aztecs. I mean, look at the Aztec Empire and how bloody the Aztec Triple Alliance was. I mean, it was at its height. It would have burnt out because I don't think you could function that savagely. And there's many people who want to try to rewrite, um, history of the Aztecs because, again, they're projecting modern Western values. No, that they couldn't have been like that. That's showing them as bad. Well, yeah, it looks horrible to us. Human sacrifice and cannibalism and the Caribs. They would impregnate an enemy. They would steal a woman from another tribe, impregnate her, and rape her to impregnate her, and wait till the ninth month and cut her open and eat the the baby that's just about to be born. They considered it a delicacy. That's fucking revolting to you and me, right? Um, so that's the summary. I hope this is short enough so I can upload it. Peace to you, and thank you.